Hey guys, welcome back to Being Extra. As your host, Jorge Gonzalez. Today I'm joined by a really special guest, Connor Pannell. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, Jorge. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be talking to you. You know, we have a friend in common, Chad Ayers, who I actually interviewed on this channel, and he's an actor, soon to be director. And he told me about what you are doing and your company, and I think is great. And I really, wanted to get a little bit deeper, from the man himself, from the owner. So I'm glad to be talking to you today, man.
Well, thank you for having me here. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I can go ahead and jump into talking a little bit about New East, which is what Chad knows me through, which is my large format camera rental company that we opened our doors 3 weeks prior to the COVID lockdown, and so 2020 we've really seen pretty much about every single left turn in Albuquerque, I think someone could expect and handle in less than 365 days. So it's been an experience for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Well, before we get to talk about those companies that you've had, I want to ask you, just jump a little bit back in time. And how did you get into the film industry?
How did I get into the film industry? That is an excellent question. And it seems like everybody's journey is a little bit different.
I agree. I agree.
There's no real clean cut way. I would say there's you get messy any way you try to take a dive into it. But if we go back to ground zero, uh, I started making movies with my grandfather's Sony Handycam back when they still
Oh,
took VHS tapes. So,
oh
you
wow.
put it in and, you can tape over whatever. And so I used my little brother as, my one actor. And, he was really hyper as a little child. And so I made this one series called The Little Diablo. And so it was him just like walking around and he's like pretending to eat people and do all sorts of
Oh
crazy
wow.
stuff. And so for whatever reason, I found the whole process of just, being behind the camera and just filming things to be really exciting and in a way addictive too. And so my parents started to notice that I was just asking my grandparents, oh well, hey, can I come over because I just got to use that camera again. And so one year they got me a Sony DV cam, so I got that upgrade to the little micro
The mini DV, right?
yeah, the little mini DV ones.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh man, I'm the man of the future with this thing here. And by this point I was probably in the sixth or seventh grade. And then just continued making my own little home movies, and I would try to remake scenes from other
Hmm.
movies. So there's this one thing that I did with my little brother where I was remaking the scene where Neo from The Matrix was trying to escape the office. And so
Really?
I did that all in my parents' living room, and we used the deck for the bit when Neo has to take the painter's lift down. And anyway, it was pretty fun. Tried to do another like V for Vendetta remake. I think I was exposed to a lot of R-rated content as a
Right.
child. Um, and so then from there, I guess I got my first break
Mhm.
um, as a rising eighth grader. Summer going into the eighth
Oh
grade,
wow.
a job as a crafty PA for a film called Not Since You, which you can actually find on Netflix. It's a rom-com that was shot
You said
over the
as
course.
an eighth grader? Sorry, as an eighth
Yeah,
grader?
as an eighth grader,
Wow.
going into the eighth grade.
That's young for a PA.
Well, it was not very glamorous working there. I was unpaid. I was
Oh,
unpaid because I think it violated some sort of labor law to actually pay me for the work.
right.
So
Yes.
anyway, we just get exploited in various ways.
Mhm.
But it was a great experience, great people. And I remember like all of the actors on the show actually really took the time to speak to me, which I thought was really cool, because I was just some little crafty PA kid that they could be like, all right, well, kid, I've got better things to do, like go act in the freaking feature film. But yeah, I was on that for 3 weeks straight. Learned how to make a tofu stir fry.
Oh wow.
Uh, met met all the actors on the show, and I got a really in-depth look at what the filmmaking process was like behind the scenes. And I think
Right.
the budget for this film was either 1 million or 1.5. And they were still shooting on film. This was 2007 at the
Oh
time.
wow.
Anyway, getting to see all of this on set, though, it only fed my imagination, though. And I was just right there, right next to it. And so immediately after that show wrapped, I was like, okay, well, it's time for me to do my first movie, which turned into this 10-minute short film where I used just some of my friends who were also about to go into the 8th grade, and we
Right.
had to play these hitmen that were trying to kill each other. And, again,
Mm.
me, I'm sure the R-rated
They are
movies that
ready.
I was
Yeah.
a kid were really influencing me at this point.
Mm.
Did not opt to do a rom-com of my own. Um, and so from there, it just continued to really snowball.
Right.
And 7th grade, did my own little short films, and then 8th and 9th grade, I got really fascinated with what a lot of people know as machinima, like the Halo movies, like Red versus Blue. And
Yes.
so one of my friends got me a capture card for my birthday. And so I figured
Ooh.
out how to record the TV in 1080p and all
Hmm.
that stuff. And then I was doing my own um, narration for the characters in it. And so I would change the pitch of my voice so all the characters would sound slightly different, but they were me. Um, and then once I got through the two-year machinima phase, I guess, I got my first job working at a Holiday Inn as a lawn maintenance assistant.
Oh wow. So not really into movies. You went into something else after that, right?
So I was only 15 at this
Of
point, so I
course.
was trying to make money at this point.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is because I was interested in film, that's why I took the job, because I was like, okay, I need a real camera. I need
Ah.
Canon EOS Rebel T2i so I can be a real filmmaker. And
There you
so,
go. Smart. You had a plan.
yeah, had a plan, sort of. And I just remember on all these other cameras I had used, I wasn't able to change the focus on it, to pull the focus.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, that'll make me a real filmmaker if I'm able to do that. And so I had to get a DSLR because, you can pop whatever lens you want on it. You can change the focus, and it's a much more dynamic
Yeah, of
camera, if
course.
you will. So got that, and then I really started to accelerate the amount of content that I was producing. I made a 30-minute film, which to me at the time, that was my feature film, but it was only
Yeah.
30 minutes. Again, going with the Hitman theme, I really loved Hitman in high school. That was my go-to.
That was your go-to. Yeah.
Couple improvisational thriller comedies. And then where did we go from there? So by the time I graduated, um, I had just done this internship with a group called Film Athens, and so that got me connected to the filmmakers
Hmm.
and the local Athens scene in Athens, Georgia. And so I going into college, I sort of knew what the community was like. I knew who was who, and I was trying to, be recognized as well. And I was the youngest guy trying to break into that group. And luckily, they were really a terrific group of people that took
Yeah.
me under their wing, that provided some great mentorship, that even helped me make movies in the years to come. One of them, Brian Redding, he's one of my mentors, and he and I just shot something together. And so it's cool to be able to grow with a mentor and eventually become colleagues, which has been a really great experience. But
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm gonna say before you keep going that I
yeah,
think it's amazing that at such a young age you took an initiative, to do your own films, to do your own things. some people think that if they don't have the right camera, they can't make a film, or if they don't have the right amount of crew or the right amount of money, because you just took the initiative at such a young age to make, even if they were short films, and you eventually did a 30-minute film, which I think that is amazing. So even from starting from Crafty, you got involved in that world from what I can see. And even from doing Crafty and making food, you learn so much, right? You learn so much just seeing what goes on behind the scenes.
I think I was just too dumb to realize that failure was a possibility. And so I just was like, here, let's go for it. Why not? It was the only thing that made sense. Creating is the one thing that has always made sense to me. And so no matter what, I'm like, here, let's go try doing this. I want to tell this story. I want to create this. And, sometimes it works out and, we tell a good story, and sometimes it's a learning experience.
Of course, and but that's so good. The thing is that not to be afraid of failure. Just do it. Go ahead, go for it, create, which I think it's awesome. And I'm glad that you say you are working with your mentor, right?
Brian Redding, he's a director of photography. He's one of my most trusted and respected colleagues, and so he really showed me
Hmm.
a lot of the cinematography tricks that really brought me up to that next level, coming out of high school and being freshman and sophomore college student. And so, by the time I was doing my thesis project my senior year of college,
Hmm.
I'd learned a lot. And I actually called on Brian to shoot that project, and he
Oh,
knocked it out of the park. And the other thing that we worked on together, I can't really talk about, but we've got some exciting things in the work. And so it's just really cool to, have grown up with a mentor. I've known Brian since I was 17, 18 years old. So I guess almost, good Lord, now that I'm thinking about it, I've known him for 9 or 10 years. It's
wow. Time flies
like
by, huh?
time does fly by. But yeah, it seems like life has really come full circle.
Yeah. And right out of college, did you go into filmmaking, or what did you do right out of college?
That is so funny. I was not majoring in filmmaking at all. What did I major in? My freshman year, I was in on track to be a public health major
Oh.
because it was completely random. It was me just listening to what people believed was best for me at the time.
Right, right. But it kind of ties into your new business, right?
Yes, it does tie into the new business, Studio Health and Safety Solutions, which is a company that basically provides COVID compliant services, COVID-19 testing, and a variety of other health and safety solutions for productions that are looking to keep their crew healthy, keep their crew safe, and keep their crew, most importantly, sane.
That's good. And for everybody that's watching this or listening to this on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to put the links down below, and on Apple Podcasts in the info. I'm going to put the links to Studio Health and Safety Solutions, so you can reach out to Connor if you have a production coming up. He's the man to talk to. And I
Yeah.
will put all those links down below for the page, for the website.
And just one more thing for me to throw in about Studio Health and Safety Solutions. All of our solutions are actually designed by scientists of infectious disease. And so we keep two specialists with us, and one is actually a behaviorist who has studied human behavior with regard to infectious diseases. Our other specialist is a PhD, and so he specializes more on the biological side of infectious disease. So we have the human side and we have the deep scientific side, and so together we've really put together some incredibly robust solutions that really provide turnkey services for a production, and allows the creatives and the crew members to focus on their job and not have to worry about the health. Studio Health and Safety Solutions takes care of that. So production just has to worry about what they're there to actually do, produce the film.
Oh wow, I think that is amazing, and the way you explained it. And in such a time where we're just so unsure and feel so unsafe going to work every day, especially on the production where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of crew, there's a lot of things to touch, from tripods to lights, just to anything. I think that what you guys are doing with your company is great. And tell me a little bit about your company, Studio Health and Safety Solutions, how you started. Was it before COVID or because of COVID that you started right away? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Studio Health and Safety Solutions was actually was born um, a month or two after COVID, because the main business that I run, New East Rental, we opened our doors uh, 3 weeks prior to COVID. And so, if you want to talk about rocky starts, it was the hardest start anybody could have ever
Oh wow.
had. And so, and it wasn't just happening to me. It was happening to every small business owner that I saw, whether it was a mom and pop grocery store, or even a production company in Atlanta that was shooting industrials, or a television show. It's just like everybody got shut down and everybody was hemorrhaging money. And so when you're running a business, it's a lot higher stakes, and eventually the money does run out, and eventually the bank comes knocking. And a lot of people were really freaked out by that. And so I hated just seeing people um, having no option. There was no way to survive. And so um, I couldn't accept just sitting on the sidelines and watching all these businesses just go belly up. So I wondered, okay, is there any way that I can contribute and provide a solution to this problem? And that's essentially how Studio Health and Safety Solutions was born. And so, luckily, I had the privilege of knowing some people who actually were in the infectious disease sector. And so I reached out to them. I explained to them what I had been seeing, what was happening to businesses, specifically in the film industry right now. And they felt really similar to how I did. And so everything snowballed from there. We started to develop our solutions. We took meetings with creatives and business owners to
Wow.
have an accurate and strong understanding of um, what their roadblocks were, what was happening with them. And so we really tried to cater it to the industry in such a way that has empathy for what they're doing, and also provides solutions that are appropriate for that industry as well.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing, and that's true. Once COVID started, everybody was pretty unsure of what was going to happen, especially to our industry. We People did not know how we were going to move forward, and I'm happy that you guys are, giving the service so people can move forward with the productions, whether it's a TV show, movie, or anything like that. And because I talked to you before this, and you were talking to me about some crazy numbers, how all budgets or most budgets will have to increase about 30% just because of this, correct?
COVID does create additional costs for film productions, which that's what makes this situation really um, difficult, I would say, because given certain guidelines that some productions are required to follow, just depending on what type of production it is and who's associated with the production. There's some circumstances where you have to test everyone who's occupying Zone A, which is where the camera and most of the VIPs are on the set,
Right.
to test everyone there 3 times a week. Now, if you have 15 to 20 people going through Zone A, then that's 15 to 20 tests at
Wow.
roughly 100 to $150 a test 3 times a week. I mean, those numbers really start ratcheting up. And so, unfortunately, what I have seen is that this is a new line item cost that a lot of productions are really having trouble with. And so I think it's a solution that we all really need to work towards finding a way that is more cost effective.
Right.
Because if you ask me, it's just unacceptable that productions have to shut down because they can't afford to operate in a pandemic. We need to find a way that for resources to exist to make sure these productions stay alive, because otherwise what happens is we have a circumstance where the rich get richer and the
Mhm.
poor get poorer, because this situation isn't exclusive to the film industry. It applies to every industry, if you ask me, because you can walk down the street, Walmart and Target are open, but who's closed? Mom and pop shops
Mhm.
all day long, local businesses, which statistically have the largest effect on communities.
Right.
And so, similarly with filmmaking, you can either be super DIY backyard filmmaking, and you can do whatever you want and you can follow whatever regulations you essentially deem appropriate for your set. But when you're operating at a higher level, and unions get involved, you inevitably have to play by their rules. And so the situation that creates is, let's say that there was a $2 million independent production shooting. Well, $2 million, that's still considered relatively low budget.
Right.
But you can still make a nice dent with it. Now, $2 million during COVID, given the COVID expenses of having compliance officers on set, having testing potentially 3 times a week for majority or at least half of crew members, it's reduced the spending power of that production. And so unfortunately, we've seen a lot of folks that have just been like, it's not financially viable to do this production. And so I wish I had a solution that I can suggest for that. But I don't yet. But I've been talking to everybody about it, because I don't think it's the right way to move forward by just saying, okay, well, hey, we can make Avengers, but anybody else, good luck.
Yeah.
I just that
Correct.
I think that's devastating from a creative standpoint. That's devastating if we're trying to have any variety in the market. And I think it would. This may be a slippery slope, but I think in the long term it could lead to monopolies or
Yes.
oligopolies in the filmmaking sector, because if you have 2 or 3 large companies that just produce all of the content that can afford
Mhm.
the COVID expenses, everybody else gets edged out because they can't afford to play the game anymore. And
Correct.
that's the tragic part. And as someone who grew up with content, I
Mhm.
want to see the independent content. The
Yes.
independent content always pushes the bar to the next level. And I feel most satisfied when I see indie films. I mean, I'm sure many people would disagree with me. And granted, I love Tenet and Avengers, like the next guy, but sometimes you're hungry for something that you don't get to see quite as often. And I think the independent film market really satisfies that. And it would be tragic if we lost that market by 80 to 90% due to the pandemic. And so I wish I had a solution for how to make it work, and I'm trying to figure that out. But as of right now, I'm not really sure what that is, and it really bothers me.
Well, but is amazing that you guys took action right away and you guys said, okay, what is the best way to do this? Because some productions do need to move forward. Some productions do need to keep going. And the fact that you guys, like you said, you had like somebody on the scientific side and like a behavioral specialist. Is that correct? So I think that is great on that side, that you guys are finding the best, the most cost-effective solutions for productions. Because adding that, that extra 30, 20, whatever percent, it could hurt some, like you said, we don't want a monopoly on movies. And I agree about the whole, indie movies. Sometimes indie movies have the best stories, they have the lowest budgets, but sometimes they make the greatest things. Like you have your Parasite. Parasite started out as an indie, got picked up eventually, and it started getting some traction. But things like that, and people say, oh, they don't make original movies anymore. Yes, they do. They don't expose them as much. There's not as much marketing for them as an Avengers, like you said. And yeah,
Mhm.
we all love our superhero films, but we also want to make our own films. And like something about me, director, cinematographer. So I like to make my own content too. And it will be eventually harder to do until we find better solutions. But you guys, I feel like your company and you are on the right path to helping us be safer out there. So we're not having to worry as much and be scared as much. Because I did just work on a couple productions last week as a PA, and they were just like letting us go as quickly as they could. Not no overtime, nothing like that, no meal penalties, because I think they can't afford to have those extra costs because they're already spending so much on COVID tests, like you said, and it's just the times we're living in right now. But I think it is amazing that you and your company are doing what you can to so productions can finish their project, whether it's a TV show or whether it's a movie. I think that's amazing, and I'm glad you are really doing this.
Really, and like just one thing that seems to be overlooked a lot is actually the human behavior perspective on film sets
Hmm.
as it pertains to COVID-19 or any infectious disease for the matter. Testing is very important. Wearing a mask, important. Um,
Yeah.
if that's your only mode of protection on a set, like if I walked on the set and they're like, "Oh well, we test you 3 times a week and wear a mask," I'd be like, "Well, what are you telling your people? What are you recommending their best practices are?" And so again, that's why Studio Health and Safety Solutions is a little bit different than your average health and safety company, because one of our specialists is a behaviorist with regard to human behavior and infectious disease. And so we put together plans for how your people should operate, how your crew should operate on a set, what they should not do, what they should routinely do, because everyone is prone to different forms of thinking, and if you can standardize behavior to a certain level, it allows you to mitigate a large amount of risk. And at the end of the day, that's what we do. We mitigate risk. Anyone who ever says, "Oh, well, we'll make sure that you 100% don't have any cases of COVID-19 on set," I would distrust that, because that's a very heavy claim. That's a very heavy claim, and I don't think anybody can know that for sure. But you
Right.
can take significant actions to ensure that a crew remains safe, and that they're doing the right thing. A lot of times people are just unsure. And so they just need someone to provide a consultation, let them know, hey, here are the risks. Hey, here are the best ways to operate. One of our solutions that we use, we employ a ring that collects biometric data. And
Wow.
here, I've got a sizing kit with me right now.
Really?
But so all you do is you put it on your finger,
Uh-huh.
and I think it's pretty cool. It makes me feel like a wizard. Um, so it collects biometric data, heart rate variability,
Right.
temperature, and a variety of other data points. And basically,
Wow.
it's a smart ring, and it'll let you know if you're running a fever before you start
Really?
to feel bad. It's so sensitive, it'll let you know if your temperature has changed by zero point 0.1 degrees. And so, like, at night, it'll basically do a download of all your data and take your current health profile. And in the
Right.
morning, it'll give you a little message that lets you know how you're doing. And so
Whoa.
I've had nights where I've just overeaten. Let's say I ordered a pizza
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
got to my house at 8 p.m. and I was in bed by 10 and I was feeling really full when I went to bed. The ring will actually give me a notification, and it's like, could you have overeaten last night? Your heart rate was elevated, blah 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 blah, because your body is having to digest all that.
Right. And it can tell all that.
Yeah, it can tell that, or it can tell you if you might have had food poisoning, or if you're starting to get sick. One time it sent, this was a long
Mm-hmm.
time ago, but it sent a message that says, "Oh, hey, your temperature elevated and your respiratory rate increased. you may be getting sick. And that's before you even start to feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, the big scare with COVID is, okay, well, if you're pre-symptomatic, you can still infect, and how do you mitigate that risk? Well, this ring is perfect for that, because
Wow.
it'll let you know the second this stuff starts to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It'll notify you. And basically what we do is we provide those rings to the production,
Yes.
and we don't profit off of the rings. It's just a mode for us to mitigate risk and kind of keep a profile.
And you guys are getting real-time results.
Exactly. And so what we do with those rings, though, is we provide data analysis and data profiles for everyone on set wearing a ring. So some productions have wanted everybody to wear a ring. Some productions only want folks in zone A to wear the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then other productions only want, maybe 10 people wearing the ring. Maybe
Right.
their actors, their director, their DP, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what we've found is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, that can be Orwellian. But the people that actually have used the rings really like them. And they said, hey, that made me more self-aware of the health decisions I was making, of how I was actually doing. And so people have said, hey, thank you. This is really great. This has helped me be more aware of my surroundings, of how I treat myself, and also how I treat others, and how aware I am of potential
Right.
infectious disease risks. So we've actually had a really positive response to that. And just from a psychological perspective, or a behavioral perspective, it's helped people stay a lot more sane, because, if they're like, oh, am I running hot? Could I have a fever? No,
Right.
immediately, because you can just check the ring,
You
and
check the ring, yeah.
yeah, and it can interface with your phone, and you're good to go. And in the event anybody is looking a little bit rough, I mean, we know that by 4 a.m. that morning, and we
Mm-hmm.
can prepare for it. We can isolate them from the set if need be, or we can let them know, hey, take it easy today. Hey, make sure you're staying hydrated. It allows us to really have a very robust sense of the general health of the crew, which is great.
Wow, that is so smart because if anybody is running just a little bit hot, you guys are not gonna run the risk of having them be next to everyone. You guys are gonna, like you said, maybe separate. And I think that's amazing that you're getting real-time data. And like you said, I think people will make healthier choices if they're wearing the ring and they know what it's gonna say on there, or maybe they're gonna be more conscious with their health choices. I think that is so cool. I was not expecting that at all when you told me. I didn't know something like that existed. And I think it's great that you guys are using that. So depending on the production, like you said, they might want only some people to wear it or everybody to wear it, correct?
That's right. Sometimes it depends on budget, and
Yeah.
sometimes sometimes crew members are like, well, this is Orwellian, and we won't support it. And
Right.
we're not going to try to force it down anybody,
No,
because
no.
we want it to make you feel good, not to feel bad. So we're not going to be like, well, you've got to go with this solution. If it works for the production, fantastic. If production isn't comfortable with it, then that's fine too. It's just another way to mitigate risk, and it's not for everybody. Um, but it definitely has its place, and from the people that have used it, we've gotten overwhelmingly positive responses. And I use it myself, and I'd be, if someone was my guardian angel looking at my Aura Ring data,
Right.
I would be, I'd be like, all right, go for it. Let me know if anything looks
Yeah.
askew.
That's true. Well, I'm glad that I have you here because I want to talk to you about something. I live in Atlanta, and there are some productions right now that are doing the bubble concept, and I wanted to ask you how you feel about that because I got offered the job and I had to be with them for 45 days in the bubble with them, cannot go home. And I don't have a problem with that, but I am married and I have other, work engagements that I cannot, put aside. So I understand some people have kids, pets, but how do you feel about the whole bubble system?
The
Be
whole bubble system. So essentially, 2 weeks prior to production, everyone stays in the same hotel floor and just.
and throughout production.
Mhm. I think that is a messy situation. I understand why it exists, and I
Hmm.
think it makes a lot of sense, especially when millions of dollars are on the line. Like, thinking as a producer, I think it makes a lot of sense to make people adhere to that, because the last thing you want is to be 4 weeks into production and then all of a sudden your star gets COVID. You have to halt the
Right.
production, but the money keeps flowing out. So I would say it has its place as a way to mitigate risk. At the same time, it's really inconvenient, it sounds
Hmm.
like, right? It doesn't feel too awesome. How long are you having to quarantine for the production?
If I was to do it, 45 days with them, taking, I think, two COVID tests a week, and everything is, even in the weekends, have to stay with them, 45 days, I believe. But I can't do it. I have a couple of friends who did it. They already started about 30 days ago, so they're 30 days in. And that's actually going to be my next interview. My friend who's been there for 30 days is going to tell me about his experience.
So you have to quarantine for 45 days before the production
Oh no,
even.
sorry. I'm sorry. 45 days through the production. You can't go home.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I understand. I understand. Do they pay you an increased rate or anything like that?
Yeah, so they're paying extra for staying with them. They're paying for every COVID test you take. It's just a little bit inconvenient. I think you do have to quarantine with them 10 days before, and then throughout the whole production,
Okay.
you cannot go home. You're pretty much living at the studio. Is what you're doing.
I, do they pay you for the quarantine, for the 10
Yes,
days of
all
quarantine?
that. They're paying every day for quarantine, even for
Well,
weekends
uh,
and stuff
uh,
like that.
yeah, it sounds like they're trying to be as fair as they
Mm-hmm.
can be. Although what I will say, I mean, I'll go back to the human behavior part about this whole thing. It's really about how you're acting and how you're treating the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if at the risk of sounding crude, if you're about to go into production and you're going to the strip club every night, well,
Right.
you're probably at an increased risk for catching COVID, because
Yes.
you're probably pretty close to people, right?
Right.
And so again, in an effort to standardize behavior, they've said, okay, well, or they've decided rather that, okay, let's keep them all in this one spot, and that way we know that they're only intermingling with each other, and we test them and make sure that it's all good. But there's inherent flaws with testing as well. There's false negatives, there's false positives, and at the end of the day, all a test is it's a snapshot of that one
Mm-hmm.
moment. So
Oh wow.
if you go get a test, who's to say that the second you walk out of the room and touch a doorknob or whatever, and then
Yes.
maybe you scratch your nose, boom, there you go, you got COVID. All right.
Exactly.
But that test will come in as, oh, you're good to go, when in fact you aren't. So there are these inherent flaws. And so I think the best way, I mean, that's why I go back to the smart ring, because I think it's really just a great way to keep
Mm-hmm.
it on everyone. And considering testing is so expensive, just the certain testing mandates and testing quotas, I would just argue that they're only effective to a certain point, and there are additional solutions that should be put in place to continue to mitigate risk, as opposed to, okay, well, we test everybody, and if we get a positive test, well, we isolate them. Well, sometimes if you get that positive test, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's simply too late. Well, great, you knew the person, but they infected five other people while they were waiting on the result.
And they could have infected other five people and another five. It could
Exactly.
go.
And so then it becomes an exponential equation at that point. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there's just flaws to it. And to spend so much money on something that is an imperfect solution,
Right.
this question its complete viability as an end all be all solution. I think human behavior is a really important factor to consider and implement in the solutions. And again, that's why studio health and safety solutions exist. We see the validity in testing. We see the validity in having compliance officers and wearing a mask, but we also see the validity in behavioral modification, and how at the end of the day humans are behaving while on set and while off set.
Well, thank you so much for that information. Once again, it's called Studio Health and Safety Solutions. I will put all the links down below. Also, for the people listening on the podcast, he showed the ring. We are also on YouTube if you want to see what it looks like. If you're interested, follow us on YouTube. Well, Connor, I just have one more question I want to talk to you about before we let you go, because I know you're a busy man. So I want to talk to you about your just to change a little bit about your camera rental company.
Hmm.
How did that come about? Because I've never talked to anybody that owns a camera rental company. I just know you rent cameras for productions.
Sure.
And there's the whole thing between buying and renting. I know it's smarter to rent for a production, but just tell me a little bit about that company.
So our camera rental company is called New East Rental, and here we have our mast. This is
Ah,
our
there you
logo,
go.
New East Rental. I'm actually at the New East Rental offices right now,
Oh, nice.
and New East Rental came about because I fell in love with film through cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved cameras since I was a 12-year-old. And so as I grew up with cameras, it's just something that I uh, learned fairly intimately. It's something that I was deeply passionate about and something that I also saw value in. And when I came to the Atlanta scene, I just noticed that sometimes people weren't quite getting what they wanted or getting the customer service that they were looking for.
Right.
And respect is something that's always been very important with me. And so what I started thinking was, well, what if there was a large format and Super 35 camera rental company where the focus was not only the quality of the gear, but also the quality of the customer service and the personal investment in whoever our client is. And so, what we're really trying to do is service the market of independent filmmakers here in Atlanta, and also lower budget television shows and feature films.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a niche that really is making exciting and fascinating content that sometimes folks turn a blind eye to them. And I was also one of those individuals as well. So I saw a niche, I saw the need, and I really wanted to serve that because I myself was hungry for it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, hey, why don't I just do it? And so we got some incredible equipment. We've got Alexa Mini LFs, Aries Signature Primes. We've got
Wow.
vintage Russian lenses, Ultra Primes, Alexa Classic Reds. I mean, we've got pretty much everything under the
Right.
sun. And if New East doesn't carry it, we can find it and get it for you. Because again, we value customer service and we want to make sure our clients have what they need so they can tell the best story they can. What I like to say is we're here to amplify their voices, and we want to amplify the voices of filmmakers through the camera systems and accessories that we offer. And that's pretty much what New East is all about. We're located in Doraville, right off of 85. We've got a soundstage in the back for a full turnkey production. We'll be getting LED panels that can run Unreal Engine, so we
Wow.
can do virtual productions as well, just like Mandalorian. And so, we're here to do a great job. We're here to show the love, and it's important to us that filmmakers in Atlanta feel valued and that they get the very best. And so that's what we're here for.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for letting me know about that. And I just have a quick question because I thought it was interesting. Do you guys do research on the cameras before you acquire them?
Oh,
For people that,
every single one, because so this is where the shrewd businessman side comes into play. But at the
hmm
end of the day, any new piece of equipment that
hmm
you're looking at, it's a small investment
right,
because what you have to look at it like is, okay, I am going to spend X amount on this camera and I am anticipating that it will rent out enough to pay off the camera and also profit off of this
right.
camera. And so, an Alexa Mini LF, for instance, that's a $75,000 camera.
Yes.
And so, we choose our equipment based on equipment that stands the test of time, that we know is going to be popular, that rents out frequently. and that we know can offer a production really an advantage, something that can, again, amplify their voice, that can help them tell their story in a stronger way. And, we just want to continue to support that. But yeah, every doodad, every accessory, every camera, every lens is an investment, and that's pretty much where our selection comes into play. We do our best to really have a well-rounded library of gear, and so again, if you're looking for it, we probably have it. But I I don't know that I would buy 20 Reds, because I would be worried about them overheating or having to do
Right.
maintenance on them. So the less maintenance I can do, the happier I am over here. And so that hopefully that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Well, thank you so much for your time, Connor. Just if you want to tell the people, if you have any social media accounts for your companies where they can follow them at.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow New East Rental on Instagram at literally at New East Rental. And that's our Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at Connor Pannell, ConnorPannell. And yeah, if you want to visit our website, it's www.neweastrental.com. Studio Health and Safety Solutions is just www.studiohealthandsafetysolutions.com. Could we make the name any longer? I don't know.
Is a very clear name. Is
Yeah,
it, you guys do what the name says, so that's
yeah,
perfect.
exactly. We just try to keep it easy. We try to make it easy. We
Well,
have
thank you
to
so
try
much,
to.
everybody. I'm gonna put the links down below. I'm gonna put everything there so you guys can follow Connor and follow his companies. Thank you so much once again, Connor, for doing this. It's been a pleasure, and it's been a very eye-opening interview into this kind of new world we're living in right now in our industry. So thank you so much, for your time and for being here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate your time as well.
All right, and you guys don't forget to follow and subscribe on YouTube, and we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thank you, guys.